Welcome to the Economic Rockstar Podcast with your host, Frank Conway, connecting brilliant minds in economics and finance.
Hi, welcome back again to another episode of the Economic Rockstar Podcast, and this episode is a very short one, about 10 minutes long, and it's just a part of a conversation that I had in episode 165 with Stephen Wright, but it wasn't released. It didn't fit into the conversation we had. Stephen acknowledged that and just suggested that I remove it and maybe introduce it later on when it was more appropriate. So I think it's a good time to release this because I will be speaking to another economist, Wendy Carlin, tomorrow. And she is associated with the work that Stephen Wright had also done on a new economics online platform called Core Econ, which is an open access platform for anyone who wants to understand the economics of innovation, inequality, environmental sustainability, and more. And it's in a very interactive website. It's free. There's no pricing architecture. Anyone can access it, and they even have apps in which you can download onto your phone, whether it's iOS or Android, and you can access the rich data and also the lessons and conversations that the economists who contribute to this website, Core Econ. So why not go and check it out at core-econ.org. And if you're interested in what Stephen has to say and you want to hear more, why not check out episode 165 with Professor Stephen Wright. And there will also be a video of this conversation over at the Economic Rockstar YouTube page. So enjoy this episode with Professor Stephen Wright, and I hope you can enjoy me with my conversation with Wendy Carlin coming up soon. And if you want to check out the links mentioned in this episode, visit economicrockstar.com/core econ, or type 173 in the search bar of the Economic Rockstar website and it'll redirect you straight to this episode. So enjoy, and thanks very much for listening. Yeah, a lot of people actually do that. Brian Kaplan of George Mason actually says that about education too. It's not necessarily just because you feel the need to go on to this next stage of your life. It's not always the best choice. And that's what you found yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I've seen it. I see it in so many of my students who basically leap into it drift into doing a degree and then don't really think it's, they're not sufficiently interested in it or ready to do it, really, I think. So I can't claim that it was any great plan, though, because when I did finally go to university, it was more because I thought that I sort of should, because I wasn't getting anywhere else in life. Even then I didn't really want to study economics. I thought I wanted to study politics, but I did an economics degree. I started an economics degree where there was some politics in the first year, and 1 year's worth of politics modules was quite enough for me. And I decided that I did quite like economics. And so, yeah, I then just progressively got into the subject. And it's interesting you were talking about sort of non-mainstream economics, because I think of myself as being, if anything, a quite hardline mainstream economist. Okay. I'm a fan of economics, and I think, it gets a bad name, partly because of the way quite a lot of mainstream economists fail to present the subject. I don't know if you've been using this in your university, but are you aware of the Core project, the new online resource for teaching economics?
Okay, no.
Okay, well, I'll send you the link and you can put it up if you want.
Yeah.
Because it's a new teaching project that's teaching, I would say, mainstream economics, but in a much more refreshing way for people new to economics. And I've been using that for the last 3 years.
Is this in the UK only, or is this?
No, it's an international. It's set up in the UK, but it's very much an international collaboration. Wait a minute. Actually, let's see if I can share screens. Share screens.
Yeah, cool. Because Cengage have it as well in the US, where they are actually trying to bring about teaching economics more with an online focus.
Yeah, well, it's not. I mean, online's great, but I think it's not so much the online thing. It's what you teach when you're online. So this is the website, coreecon.org.
I'm going to remove myself from the video and then I'll put myself back on whenever you're on.
Okay. No, actually, maybe that's. Okay, you can do that. Yeah, okay. So this is it. It's started by Wendy Carlin and Sam Bowles.
Oh, I know Wendy.
Wendy Carlin at UCL and Sam Bowles at Santa Fe.
Yes.
But then a whole an army of collaborators, including I've got roped in.
Wow.
And what they have basically is they have this book here, The Economy, which is aimed at undergraduates. And look, it's already been translated into French. It's in the process of being translated into other languages. They then have this one, which is brand new this year, which is aimed at people who are not doing economics as as their main subject, but are doing it as part of a sort of interdisciplinary subject. And I'm using that. We've just started an MSc PPE at Birkbeck. Sorry, a little bit of plug there.
Yep.
And I'm using this as my set text for the part of the lecture that I'm teaching, and I think the students are enjoying it. Then finally, this thing on the right, doing economics, is actually encouraging people to use data. So they're actually giving them data sets and telling them how to, stuff that they can do with it. And they're not sort of conventional data sets necessarily. I mean, the first one is actually on climate change. There's the Spanish version of it, and there's Core USA. I'm not quite sure what the difference is about Core USA, but maybe they think that Americans need to be talked to in a different way. I don't know. Okay. But actually, it's very much an international collaboration. If you look at the contributors, it's just an extremely long list of contributors from all over the world. I think I'm in there somewhere, but and really, I think it's in alphabetical, so I'm somewhere near the bottom, I guess.
It's amazing.
The various chapters have been written by various people. Wendy and Sam are sort of the chief authors, and my role actually was they pulled me in as sort of chief critic. So I read everything and scribbled all over it, and they were incredibly responsive to that.
This is amazing.
Actually ended up taking some of my edits and sort of more or less on board. And it keeps changing. That's the point of this thing, because it's only 3 years old and they've already been through a few editions. And if they find a mistake, they change it straight away.
And is there a pricing architecture to this, or is just...
well, that's the slight problem with it. Is there's no price. This is just free. The Economy is just brand new, costs you nothing. You can sign up. So, I mean, here, this is a sort of typical chapter looks like. Actually, here's chapter 1. It starts straight in with interesting charts, growth, GDP since 1000 AD, income distribution in the world. Fantastic set of charts here.
Oh, I've got to use that.
Very much drawing on the latest data.
Yes.
Here's income distribution, and you have these sort of click-through charts, yeah. Yeah. You can. Oops, I'm rushing it, so
you're good.
Dabbling a little bit, but you can click on it at various. So that's the global distribution of income in 1980. Going in running forward, it's the distribution within a given country. Running across, it's across countries, and so you can map actually there back in 1980.
So it's a 3-dimensional chart.
It's a 3-dimensional chart, and it brings out the contrast between global inequality and within country inequality.
It's mad. I only gave a lecture on something like this yesterday using Hans Rosling's work on Gapminder.
Well, of course, guess what? They make a lot of reference to Hans Rosling. Okay. I pointed them towards it, but of course Hans Rosling, didn't really need any advertising. But here's just look at this chart. You see that shifting from 1980 to the latest data, 2014. China's jumped up from being the bottom poorest. The poorest country to being, still a poor country. But you've got this combination of an increase in inequality within China, but also actually a crucial point that they probably don't bring out enough is that inequality across the world is falling. Because India and China just have so many people, they're being pulled up. The global inequality is falling at the moment, fairly categorically. It's only inequality within countries that's rising.
Yes.
And I think it's something that students needs to be brought out. So they start with data, but then they're you're straight into I come back to my point. I'm a mainstream economist, and I wanted it to be mainstream economics. So they've got production functions, they've got indifference curves, they've got all the usual panoply of economics, but done in a much more, I think, intuitive way. And then a very good chapter, which my students always enjoy. No, actually not chapter 4.
I see.
They do enjoy
preferences.
There's game theory and there's all sorts of other things, but then you get on to a world where you just have two people two characters interacting with each other, and at the initial point, one of them owns the other one, i.e. there's slavery. So they introduced slavery as a benchmark case, which is also, of course, Pareto efficient.
Yes.
So,
which is strange to say, but
it's certainly strange to say, but it's an unusual way to introduce Pareto efficiency in an introductory text. But I think it's important for people to realise that Pareto efficiency is a great idea, but you have to understand what it means, and I think it's good to start in that context. Like
that, what you have highlighted there, scarcity, work, and choice. If you expand that, if you drop that down, I just saw something in there that I never really saw before, and I bring it up often in previous podcasts. I think it's in here. There was something about altruistic.
Oh no, that would be more. That wouldn't be in that one. That's probably in social interactions. Yeah. So they introduced game theory, and they also very early on introduced the fact that altruism and there seems to be quite a lot of evidence of altruism in experimental evidence that people, the ultimatum game and things like that, where the evidence is pretty strong that people do actually spontaneously move to something more like a cooperative equilibrium than a Nash equilibrium, than a prisoner's dilemma equilibrium. So, incidentally, there are all sorts of things I don't like about this, so I keep telling them this. But that's fine because, actually, what really relieved me about this was that when it was first suggested that new material will be produced, sort of in the aftermath of the financial crisis, everyone who hated economics was saying, oh, well, now is the opportunity to throw economics away and teach them, whatever they believe to be the proper way of thinking about the world. And I'm really pleased to say that Wendy didn't listen to that. What she did was she took mainstream economics with all its subtleties and said, let's try and make this more interesting to students. And that's been a grave disappointment to all the heterodox economists who think mainstream economics is a waste of time. And I'm very pleased about that.
This is a fantastic output, result for Sam Bowles and Wendy Carlin and everyone else who's been involved.
Please publicise it.
Definitely.
Maybe you can cut this talk in half and you can just publicise core separately from the stock market stuff, because in a sense it's quite distinct.
Yeah.
Maybe if you know Wendy, maybe you could try and talk to her. She's very, very busy. But I'm happy to publicise this. I think the more publicity it gets, the better.
I follow her on Twitter, so maybe I'll get in touch with her soon.
Okay, good.
It'd be fantastic to talk about this and her own work.
Mm-hmm. So anyway, you were coming back. You were asking me about being an economist, but as I said, I'm a mainstream economist, and when we look at stock markets, the sort of thing I'm doing is not completely in line with what you would get in a standard finance course.
Economic Rockstar is a free podcast that does not exclude anyone from listening as long as they have a device to listen, download or stream. I have many listeners from all parts of the world, and I truly am pleased to know that the Economic Rockstar podcast unites all of you through the common theme of economics. I strive to commit to releasing an episode each week and aim to develop Economic Rockstar into much more than just a podcast. Patreon is a platform that gives you, the listener of the Economic Rockstar podcast, the opportunity to express your appreciation of the show by committing a financial reward for as little as $1 a month. Patreon allows me, the creator of the Economic Rockstar podcast, to be rewarded and paid by you so I can continue with the running costs of the show and to reinvest and expand the podcast into other platforms or mediums in the future. To find out more on how you can help the Economic Rockstar podcast and have your name added to the supporters list on my website, please check out my Patreon page at patreon.com/Economic Rockstar or visit the supporters page on the Economic Rockstar website. If you enjoyed this podcast, why not leave some feedback or comments on the show notes page on economicrockstar.com, where you can also sign up and be a member of the Economic Rockstar community. If you're listening to this episode on iTunes or Stitcher Radio, I would love to have some feedback and for you to leave an honest rating and review, as this will help with the rankings of the show so that more people can find it. If you're listening on the website economicrockstar.com, make sure you check out the back catalogue of all previous episodes and interviews with some amazing professors and authors at economicrockstar.com/podcasts. Thanks for listening, and I really appreciate your loyal support. I know how much you love audio, so why not get a free audiobook with Economic Rockstar today? I've teamed up with audiobooks.com to bring you this amazing offer. Visit audiobooks.com/rockstar to download your free audiobook now.